Do you agree with Governor Newsom sowing chaos so they have an excuse to escalate?
Well, it sure seems like Governor Newsom is, compelling in his analysis. I mean, if you kind of zoom out to the 20,000-foot view, I mean, what is provoking this confrontation in L.A.? It's the fact that the Trump administration is sending out these heavily armed federal agents in body armor and face masks, in many cases with assault weapons and tactical gear, to round up construction workers, to round up busboys, to round up hardworking immigrants, some of whom may be undocumented, but who are contributing to our economy and are, in many cases, paying sales taxes, paying Social Security taxes, essentially helping to make America great. And they, suddenly the Trump White House has imposed these quotas on ICE to go out, and they're demanding more and more roundups. And so it was kind of inevitable that you would see this kind of confrontation and pushback because they're now going to these workplaces and in heavily Latino working class communities, like Paramount in Southern California. And so they're not shying away from the confrontation. They seem to be causing. And you can just see that President Trump revels in the strongman image of, there's chaos in the streets, send out the troops. That is imagery that mobilizes his base and that accumulates even more power in the White House. So there's no question that the White House is provoking this, and it's a very delicate and very inflammatory situation that could very easily spiral out of control.
Neither the images or the rhetoric match what's really happening on the ground across the country. On this particular issue, 2,000 troops, there have been 12 arrests. Right? That is completely disproportionate. And Donald Trump says the reason he is cracking down on this entire issue of immigration is because violent criminals, undocumented illegal aliens are infiltrating American neighborhoods. The fact of the matter is that violent crime in this country is at record lows. That started, you mentioned, in the Biden administration.
Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson in Los Angeles. Talk about what you're seeing and what you're hearing on the ground.
Yeah, most of the protests that we saw, at least when we were on the ground in Paramount, most of them were people peacefully protesting, just sort of standing there. A lot of insults, of course, hurled at police that were obviously trying to push back against demonstrators spilling out into the street. And that's really what the source of the conflict was. Protests really have been a jumping off point at these flashpoint locations. And I think, obviously, with the escalation that the National Guard coming in offers, I think a lot of people only worry that that is going to worsen the situation. It's going to make it worse and not better. And that's what we've been hearing from the elected officials, Gavin Newsom, Mayor Bass, but certainly from protesters, too, who believe.
On that point about the protesters, I'm wondering how many protesters are we talking about? A few dozen, hundreds, thousands?
These locations are so vast and so split up. Paramount, for example, the place you're looking at right now on screen, right? There's a checkpoint above at sort of the light, the intersection where that shot was, where a few dozen there, a few dozen near that car, a few dozen outside of the Home Depot. That's what you're seeing right there, that black fence. I'm very familiar with that scene right there. And then a few dozen at the intersection where, again, LA County was sort of stationed